On a chilly February afternoon in Wenatchee, Washington, 17-year-old Mackenzie Cowell walked out the back door of her beauty school for what should have been a short break. She didn't tell anyone where she was going, just stepped outside and disappeared. Hours later, her car was found in a remote canyon far from town. It was locked, her purse was still inside, and a single set of footprints led away into the snow. No one knew where she went or what had happened, but something clearly wasn't right. What started as a missing person case soon turned into something much more disturbing. In the quiet town of Wenatchee, Washington, 17-year-old Mackenzie Cowell was known as a vibrant and hard-working young woman with a bright future ahead of her. She balanced her time between her divorced parents' homes while preparing to graduate from high school. On top of her academic workload, Mackenzie was pursuing her dream of becoming a hairstylist by studying at the Wenatchee Academy of Hair Design. Her life was a full one, marked by early mornings, long days, and evenings spent dancing with her school's performance group, the Applettes, or modeling in local events. Mackenzie had also endured her share of challenges, including years of teasing due to a noticeable underbite, a feature she hoped to correct with surgery. Despite this, she faced the world with resilience, her growing confidence admired by friends and family alike. Her father often spoke of her relentless drive and determination. Each day began before dawn and didn't end until well into the evening. At the time, Mackenzie was in a relationship with Joaquin Velocano, and the pair were nearly inseparable. Life seemed to be falling into place perfectly until the events of February 9th, 2010, shattered everything. That evening, Mackenzie had plans for dinner with her father, Reed Cowell. It was supposed to be a rare moment of pause in her packed schedule. When she failed to call after school as she usually did, Reed's concern quickly turned into dread. By 8 p.m., just as her family was preparing to report her missing, the police called first. Mackenzie's car, a 2000 Pontiac Grand Prix, had been discovered abandoned on a remote stretch of Pitcher Canyon Road, a location miles away from the academy and one few had any reason to visit. The setting was ominous, isolated, dark, and covered in snow. The car was locked, but inside were her purse and some clothing. Missing, however, were her phone, debit card, and keys. Only a single set of footprints trailed away from the vehicle, suggesting she had been alone at the time it was left there. The search for Mackenzie began immediately. Bloodhounds, helicopters, and volunteers combed the steep and rugged terrain near where her car had been found, but with no success. The case was labeled an endangered missing person, but not enough to trigger an Amber Alert. The community, and eventually the nation, took notice. Mackenzie's face appeared across news stations, and the FBI assigned agents to support local detectives. Everyone wanted answers, but nothing made sense. Mackenzie had no history of running away. She was popular, responsible, and deeply connected to her family and community. Surveillance footage from the Beauty Academy offered a narrow window into her final known movements. At around 3 p.m., Mackenzie was seen walking out the back door after telling classmates she was taking a short break. About 40 minutes later, her boyfriend received a casual message, "Hey, what's up?" But after that, her phone went silent. That text would be the final digital trace she left behind. Though her debit card carried only a small balance, it remained untouched in the following days. Then, witnesses began to come forward. Several residents near Pitcher Canyon reported seeing a tall, slim man with dark hair and a long coat walking alone near the area where Mackenzie's car was later found. This sighting, between 4:30 and 5:30 p.m., matched the estimated time her car may have been abandoned. Police turned their attention to Mackenzie's phone records, digging through thousands of messages, calls, and social media activity from Facebook and MySpace. Despite the flood of information, no clear lead emerged. One journalist who followed the case closely recalled how suspicion clouded the entire investigation from the beginning. Detectives never treated it like a runaway case. For 3 days, her family, friends, and investigators held on to hope, distributing flyers, scouring the area where her abandoned car had been found, and following every available lead. But hope would soon give way to heartbreak. On the fourth day, tragedy struck. Along the banks of the Columbia River in Douglas County, search crews discovered a body. The remains were soon confirmed to be Mackenzie's. She was still wearing her beauty school uniform. The scene was haunting. Though authorities kept many details close to the vest, what was known was disturbing. Mackenzie had been beaten, stabbed, and strangled. No drugs or alcohol were found in her system. She hadn't been sexually assaulted, but an attempt had been made to dismember her post-mortem, her arm partially severed, and a serrated knife lodged in her shoulder. Nearby, duct tape lay discarded in the dirt. Dive teams returned to the river's edge, and the search expanded across Crescent Bar and surrounding counties. They were looking for clues. Detectives admitted they had no clear suspects. Mackenzie could have been targeted by someone she knew, or by a stranger lurking in the shadows. Her death stunned the community. As word spread through local schools and neighborhoods, more than 1,800 people attended a memorial service to honor the life that had been so brutally cut short. The FBI deepened its involvement, and a dedicated task force was formed to assist in the case. Investigators began their process the way they often do, by looking close to home. Mackenzie's boyfriend, Joaquin Velocano, and her mother's boyfriend, Joey, were both questioned. Though Joaquin was shaken and reportedly failed a polygraph question about whether he knew who killed Mackenzie, he was ultimately ruled out. Joey had reportedly argued with Mackenzie the day before she vanished, but no evidence tied him to her death. As weeks turned into months, investigators chased lead after lead. One tip came from a woman named Liz Reed, a former drug user turned police informant. She claimed to have seen a video of Mackenzie being murdered, a so-called snuff film, and accused two men, Sam and Emmanuel, of being involved. Liz even handed police a ring she said belonged to Mackenzie, allegedly retrieved from the murder scene. However, no one from Mackenzie's circle recognized the ring, and the story began to fall apart. Liz later withdrew her claims, insisting she had spoken out of fear of being wrongly charged. Despite this setback, investigators pressed forward. They followed over 750 tips and conducted more than 800 interviews. DNA samples were taken from dozens of individuals. Still, nothing led them to the person responsible. Mackenzie's mother remained silent for months, respecting the integrity of the investigation. But as time wore on with no answers, she decided to speak publicly, pleading for anyone with information, no matter how insignificant it seemed, to come forward. Her televised message was raw and desperate. "We were asked not to speak, but the only thing worse than losing your child is not seeing justice." The case took a turn when a new informant came forward. Theo Keyes, writing from prison, provided a name: Christopher Wilson. A former friend of his, Wilson had once violently choked a woman at a party without provocation, only to stop and behave as if nothing had happened. Wilson was 29 years old and had studied at the same cosmetology academy as Mackenzie. He also lived just blocks from the school. Those who knew Christopher described him as quiet, polite, but strange. Digging deeper, investigators learned he had a fascination with death and serial killers, a troubling detail in light of the brutal nature of Mackenzie's murder. With this new name on their radar, detectives would soon discover that the answers they had been searching for might have been hiding in plain sight all along. The final pieces of the puzzle were beginning to emerge, and Wenatchee would never be the same again. Wilson had worked at local funeral homes, and some classmates recalled chilling comments he'd made. One said he boasted about cutting people up while working on bodies. Another remembered him claiming to have strangled someone with a belt during a hotel encounter. Despite these disturbing anecdotes, those close to him defended his character. His mother insisted that being different didn't make her son dangerous. His best friend described him as kind and generous, just misunderstood. But Chris stood out in more ways than just appearance. He was at the academy on the same day Mackenzie disappeared and exited through the same back door, just 2 minutes after her. From there, his whereabouts became unclear. While he exchanged a few texts with his ex-girlfriend, no one could verify where he had been that afternoon. He had no criminal history, and when police questioned him, he denied knowing Mackenzie at all. He even agreed to provide a DNA sample. That would prove to be a critical mistake. DNA recovered from a piece of duct tape found near Mackenzie's body matched Wilson. The remote location where her body was discovered made it highly unlikely this was a mere coincidence. When confronted with the DNA match and asked if he had ever been near that area, Chris denied it entirely. Upon hearing that his DNA had been identified at the scene, he asked for a lawyer. The interview ended there. Investigators noted the striking parallel between Chris's obsession with Dexter, a character who dismembers his victims, and the post-mortem injuries found on Mackenzie's body. That, along with the DNA match and the suspicious timing of his departure from the school, was enough to make an arrest. After 8 long months of uncertainty, police arrested Christopher Wilson at the apartment beneath a local salon where he lived. Though he had no relationship with Mackenzie beyond attending the same school, and had even attended her memorial service, comforting friends, he was now in custody, accused of killing her. As detectives searched his apartment and devices, the case grew darker still. A large, discolored patch of carpet tested positive for Mackenzie's blood, disproving Chris's claim that the stain had come from spilled water. Authorities now knew she had been killed in his home, yet how she got there remains a mystery. Mackenzie's father insisted his daughter would never go anywhere with someone she didn't trust. Did they have more interaction at school than anyone realized? Was she tricked or coerced? No one could say for certain. Then came another shocking development. Police arrested 22-year-old Tessa Maria Skylman, a friend of Chris Wilson, on charges of first-degree rendering criminal assistance and obstructing a public officer. Photos retrieved from Chris's computer showed Tessa posing over the same spot on his apartment floor where Mackenzie's blood had been found. Tessa claimed she didn't know about the stain and was simply being photographed by Chris. But video evidence painted a different picture. In one clip, Chris could be heard asking Tessa whether the apartment looked clean. Her response, "Clean considering?" "Yeah, it's clean considering," was unsettling. The footage even zoomed in on the exact spots where Mackenzie's blood was later identified. Tessa said the video was related to Chris's move out and his desire to get his deposit back. While she was arrested and posted bond, Tessa was never formally charged with a crime. Her involvement remains one of the most perplexing elements of the case. Christopher was held on a $1 million bond and pleaded not guilty to the charges. His appearance in the courtroom drew an emotional crowd. His mother wept as he entered, and several of his supporters remained adamant about his innocence. Among them were young women who had known Wilson personally and couldn't believe he was capable of such brutality. But to Mackenzie's friends and family, the doubt surrounding Wilson's guilt felt like a cruel denial of the tragedy they had endured. Robin Jones, a close friend of Mackenzie, reminded the public of who the real victim was. Mackenzie had not asked to be abducted, murdered, and discarded by the Columbia River. She was a vibrant teenager full of life and potential. Investigators continued working, submitting more evidence to the lab and questioning people from Wilson's circle. Yet one thing still eluded them: a motive. Some close to the case speculated that Mackenzie had simply been easy prey for someone disturbed. As the legal battle escalated, Wilson's defense team, led by well-known attorney John Henry Brown, whose former clients included the infamous Ted Bundy, worked aggressively to exclude key elements from the trial. A judge eventually ruled that prosecutors could not introduce Wilson's work at local funeral homes or mention his Hannibal Lecter tattoo. The defense also floated conspiracy theories, suggesting law enforcement had planted Mackenzie's blood in Wilson's apartment. They resurrected the abandoned theory involving Sam and Emmanuel, the two men previously accused by informant Liz Reed. Chris's mother supported these claims, convinced her son had been framed. The defense highlighted that no DNA evidence tied Wilson to Mackenzie's car or to the knife found in her body. They also questioned the validity of the ring Liz had claimed belonged to Mackenzie, citing poor quality photos and a lack of recognition from Mackenzie's loved ones. Despite these efforts, prosecutors felt increasingly confident. Wilson's charges were upgraded to first-degree murder, based on the belief that Mackenzie's death was premeditated. If convicted, he faced up to 26 years in prison. In April 2011, a plea deal was offered, 6 years for a manslaughter charge. But Wilson initially declined, maintaining his innocence. Many were shocked. Given the weight of evidence and potential sentence, the offer had seemed unusually generous. As the trial neared, Wilson changed course. He asked to accept the plea, citing results from jury surveys suggesting he would not receive a fair trial. But the 6-year deal was no longer on the table. Mackenzie's family also requested that Wilson write a formal statement acknowledging what he had done. In court, Wilson read, "This is my statement. I also did recklessly cause the death of Mackenzie Cowell by strangulation and by stabbing her with a knife." When asked if this was true, he responded, "Yes." However, afterward, he claimed the statement was false and that he had agreed to it only to secure the deal. He still insisted he had been set up. Ultimately, Wilson pleaded guilty to first-degree manslaughter, first-degree robbery for stealing Mackenzie's phone, and assault in an unrelated case. In May 2012, he was sentenced to over 14 years in prison, receiving credit for time already served. In a deeply emotional moment after the hearing, Mackenzie's family and Wilson's family embraced one another, exchanging apologies. In a case filled with heartbreak, the gesture was a rare moment of compassion. Wilson later attempted to withdraw his guilty plea through the Washington Court of Appeals. His appeal failed. Years passed. And in late 2023, after serving 11.5 years, Christopher Scott Wilson was released from prison at the age of 43. Mackenzie Cowell never lived past 17. Yet in those short years, She left a legacy of determination, kindness, and tireless ambition. Her bedroom remains almost untouched, a quiet shrine to the life she was building. Her father, Reed Cowell, keeps a wind chime outside their home. When it stirs in the breeze, he says it's like hearing his daughter speak again. "You are my special gift from God," he says. "You will never leave my heart." Thanks for tuning in to Unreal True Crime. If you're intrigued by mysteries from around the world, check out our new channel, Latin Crimes, where we dive into the gripping true crime stories of Latin America. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations.